So I'm coming down, and my abuser walks up to the camper and knocks on the window. And as soon as I opened my eyes and seen him, I snapped. And I came flying out the camper door, and my chainsaw gas was sitting there. And I picked it up and started pouring it on myself, screaming at him. I remember thinking, like, nothing's going to change until I do something drastic, and lit myself on fire in front of him.
This is Hard Knocks Talks.
What's up, Crystal? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I saw you on the Ashes to Awesome podcast. What a harrowing story. So, and also, hello, Donna.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, it's good to have you on the podcast. So, yeah, Crystal, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, welcome.
Let's not waste any time. Let's jump in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up alongside your parents?
So I just want to thank you very much for having me and allowing me the space to share a bit of my story with you guys and your audience. At 2 years old, I lost my father in a drunk driving accident. My mother was very young, and it was 3 days before Thanksgiving. And for a lot of years, I carried that with me, that abandonment. My mother, all of her whole life came crashing down that day. Like, she was a very young mom. I had a 4-year-old brother at the time, an older brother who was 4, and a half sister who was 11. My mother was now a widow and struggled a lot with her own grief and her own substance use. I was born in Los Angeles, California. When my dad passed away, we lived with my grandparents. And so my grandparents pretty much raised us for the next few years. And so my mom got the settlement from my dad's accident, and all of the court cases were done and stuff. Once she got that, she moved us back to Alaska, where my father and her were from. And at 5 years old, we showed up at my aunt's in Alaska, and we started to rebuild our life from there. My mom's drug of choice for a long time was cocaine and smoking crack. And so, like, her boyfriends would sell the drugs or be connected some way. And so there was just like lots of guys in and out of our life a lot. She would allow these guys to walk all over her. So then us children really did too. So by the time I was 9, I was being molested also and sexually abused by one of my cousins that was very close. And so I was struggling with that. And then what goes on in our house stays in our house, kept me quiet about it. And so then when I did try to like talk to her about it, she didn't believe me. And so I was like lashing out about it. I think that a lot of people, that when they first encounter that, it's like so shocking, they don't know how to deal with it. And so they want to like hush it away. And I feel like my family did the best they could with the tools that they had. They didn't have very good tools. I finally told one of my friends, who told the school nurse, and the school nurse pulled me in the office, and that's where the police report came about. But it's a family member. There's all this tension in my home. My mom was more upset that the police were going to come talk to her because of the drugs that she had in the house. She was illegally growing marijuana at the time, and she ended up getting busted, and they all thought that I called the cops and told on them. Her and her boyfriend and my brother all went to jail.
Did substance use come into your own life during this period?
My mom was the one who gave the person the first crack rock that I ever smoked, and I was 13 years old in our bathroom. And she gave it to the person that gave it to me and said, go smoke this with Crystal. And from that point on, that became the way we all socialized. But during all this time, I was staying with friends after, 12 to 13, I'm now staying with like friends, couch surfing. And from 13 to 15, I really just would stay for a few days here, stay for a few days there. I would be in the homeless shelter for children.
Now, when you told your friend that the sexual abuse was happening, and what did that feel like, saying that out loud to someone else and having them believe you?
She asked me, he's living in your house, and he lived in my apartment building, and this is what happened. And so, what's really going on? Like, you, I know for a fact, just because of how he treated me, that there's no way that he hasn't done that to you or something to that effect, because
Oh, so
he had been known for doing that to other girls.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
And when the truth came out and the police showed up, like, what were your first thoughts when you found out that the police know about this?
Like, I was afraid to tell the police just because of the illegal activity going on in my house. And I didn't feel like anything was going to be done about it.
You mentioned that you smoked crack for the first time at 13 years old. Did that become a normal part of your life?
I did not like that feeling. And so that it wasn't a regular occurrence for a while. I smoked a lot of pot and drank. And I got pregnant at 15.
Hmm.
And I now that I think back, like I was just wanted somebody, and even though just somebody to like have help me have a stable environment. And even though he wasn't the greatest person, he really helped me to have a stable environment before I had my son. I definitely tried my hardest to be like this amazing woman and mom at, in the capacity that I could. And it, in a way, I was just like thankful that I would have somebody that really loved me unconditional. I don't even know. We were so young. I can't believe that everybody just let us like be together in the native ways. Like my grandmother was like 12 and 13 when she had her first child, and she had 13 children.
Yeah.
So it was like normal to marry off the native young women. I was not allowed to smoke. I wasn't allowed to drink. I wasn't like I had to go to work and come home. And it was really like he was like more of a father figure than he was my boyfriend. At one time, he was in jail. My mom was in jail. My brother was in jail. My stepdad was in jail. They were all in the same jail. And
Holy
my
cow.
two little brothers were at my house, and I had a newborn baby. I'm the only one that's not in jail, and I'm the only one working.
I mean, there must have been some feeling of like betrayal and resentment.
I definitely try to like not be resentful, but it's hard to be like, I never really had a childhood, and all of you like knew that I didn't have a childhood,
Yeah.
and just continue to let me take on all these adult responsibilities because nobody else wanted to deal with it. So my son's a year old. I'm his father and I live in a house together. My little brothers were there often, and then they ended up, one of them went to their dads and one went to their aunts, and our fights are getting worse. And so at this time we decide, we're going to move to New Mexico around his family and get away from my family for a new start. I didn't know like where he lived was like the ghetto of Albuquerque. He knows all these guys that he was smoking crack and using drugs and doing all this gang activity with. And so I'm there, and now I'm really afraid to leave the house.
Like, so you stepped into gang life. Now, you hadn't seen gang life before.
I had to a degree because of the people that my mom associated with were all like bikers. Now, yeah, now I'm like around people that really will shoot you over $25. I don't know anybody. And I have my baby. We start smoking crack. Also, within the time that I moved from Alaska to New Mexico, I had turned 18 and gotten a trust fund that was left for me when my dad passed away. I got like $30,000 at 18. Within 6 months of getting that $30,000, all my money was gone. My car had gotten repossessed that I had bought with the money because of our drug use. we got into a huge fight, and he ended up calling the police on me, and I went to jail for assault with a deadly weapon and attempted murder. He had this like extendable baton, like the you flip it out and it's like 3 feet long, and he had used that in other crimes. And he had been like beaten up on me, and I picked that up and started hitting him with it. And he called the cops on me. Like, I was in a 20 by 20 holding cell with women that were hookers that were coming off, like, getting sick because they were dope sick. And I had never even seen that before. They ended up letting me out, and I called his cousin, and I told her, I said, I'm out. I can't go back to the house. And he has my baby, and I want my baby. She went and got him, and 3 outfits and 10 diapers, and tried to put me on a bus to leave with my baby. And the next morning, September 11th happened.
Oh, wow.
And I was so scared he was going to find us before they let us out of the city with the buses, because everything was grounded. And so on a bus with my kid, I went about 10 minutes later, and I went to my mom's. And my mom's still struggling with her own substance abuse. I was lonely. I missed his dad. And I would talk to him on the phone sometimes, and he was still not doing good, and he would tell me he missed us. He ended up coming to Montana. His parents sent him to Montana because I was doing better. I had gotten my own place, and he picked up his old ways in Montana, and he was getting help from friends in Albuquerque to supply drugs to Montana. And like, it was just like a whole nother cycle of stuff. And my son was starting to start school now. He's like 4. And I was like starting to think about all of the things that I saw as a child, and all of the things that I didn't want him to see. And starting to realize I was like repeating my mom's pattern. And so my son's now like 5 years old, and now I'm pregnant again. And my son told me I was pregnant before I knew I was pregnant. He was like, I talked to God, and he told me you have a baby in your tummy. At this point, so now I'm like 20 years old. We moved to Spokane, Washington. Once I moved there, I got my own place. I had my baby, and they're 5 years and 5 days apart. And I get emotional talking about them, because they are just my little miracles, and they are the fuel that keeps me going every day. When I went to Spokane, I didn't know anybody, but I got accepted for financial aid and started going to college. And by the time my youngest was 3, I was in college for a medical office and business management. I ended up getting a medical assisting license, a phlebotomy license. I was a transcriptionist. I could bill and code, and I worked in the medical field. And that was like, I was really proud of myself for that. I had friends who had chronic conditions that got pills from their doctors on a regular basis. And to supplement their income, they sold those pills. And so I just started buying pills from my friends. And even though I was doing all these things that were doing good, like, so now I had this addiction, and I was a functional addict, and it didn't even click to me. That carried on for about 10 years. When I started taking hydrocodone, I took 1 5 milligram hydrocodone at night before bed. When I stopped taking hydrocodone, I took 20 hydrotens at a time. My kids would see me, like, when I would get high sometimes, like, I'd be standing up and like talking and like nodding out, and like they'd be like, Mommy, are you tired? I'm like, no, I'm not tired. What are you talking about? Like, Mom, you're falling asleep standing up. Go lay down. And like, they didn't know what the hell was going on. And like, I remember them telling me that stuff. The pills started getting worse. My attitude started getting worse, and my fights with my significant other started getting worse. And I actually caught my significant other cheating on me. When I found out he was cheating on me, I started using methamphetamine.
So what did that look like the
And
first time you took it?
a sense of relief.
Mm.
And you could tell, like, I was falling apart. I was so much in a victim mindset and downward spiral that, like, everything was a catastrophe, everything was an emergency. I emptied our house, put it all in storage, and was like making plans to go back to Alaska. Like, I never thought that the first thing that popped into my head and the last thing that was in my mind at night was going to be drugs. And it went from having this beautiful life and graduating high school and then going to college. Those were things that I never had thought would happen in my life. And then after just so much turmoil in my relationship, it, like, not really caring about any of those accomplishments. Even my children are wonderful accomplishments of mine, and I just didn't even care. Methamphetamines definitely expedited that for me. So I bring my kids to Alaska and start to get reacquainted with old friends, people that knew my parents, repeating the cycle of my mom, trying to, like, have this acceptance from a man in my life, and kind of hoping that I'm going to get this knight in shining armor and all these guys with tinfoil hats. Finally, I got some housing. I was still allowing shitty people in my life. And so I'm in tribal housing. The, like, tribal police do their rounds through the tribal housing. They know who's at my house, whose car, like, when you live in a small town like that and there's only one little housing project with 10 houses, and they, you know who the drug dealers' cars are. And so I ended up getting evicted out of this housing house that I was in with my kids. That gave them the opportunity to apprehend my child, because I was couch surfing, not keeping a roof over their head, and so the tribe took custody of my child. I remember getting the news, and it was after it had all happened. I got all the voicemails at the same time. Crystal, we're trying to get a hold of you. We're about to have court. If you don't contact us within 15 minutes, we're going to go ahead without you. And another message that said, we still have not been able to get a hold of you. We're going ahead with tribal court. And then I got the message afterwards that said that they had taken my parental rights away because I didn't show up for court. I am thankful that my family stepped in. I couldn't even take care of myself. And it's difficult to talk about. They needed medical attention, and I wasn't there. So I struggled with that for the next 3 years.
What did it look like after you got the voicemails?
I was angry. I'm pretty sure I called my family members, and they were kind of like, what else were we supposed to do? Where were you? Where are you? Because, like, I wouldn't show up for my UA. Most of the time I just didn't show up. I wouldn't show up to go get UA, so I'd fail. Couldn't get a ride anyway, but didn't try to get a ride because it was going to be dirty. That in itself was, like, it's hurtful to even talk about. But I didn't have a safe place to be, and so I was trying to just numb myself from everything. And now I had no reason to want to be sober.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't at the capacity to see that it wasn't them taking it away from me. They were protecting my child. My tribe did facilitate a lot of visits between us, and it would be a miracle if I showed up to get picked up for the visit. It was hard for me to look at my kid in the eyes and not be with her.
The way what you're saying is all the things that I experienced and felt, with our son. He was removed from our care one day after his 3rd birthday. And I know exactly how you feel.
So now you've gone through a court process has taken place. You're getting some visitations. You're not showing up. What does the rest of your life look like at this time outside of your parental rights being taken away? Are you still housed? Is this when you're homeless? Like what does that look like?
So I'm kind of holed up in this like grimy little trailer with some people that aren't the best, but I can use whenever I want. And it starts to get warmer in the summertime in Alaska, and it's beautiful by the river. And so, why not just pitch a tent and like be around all your buddies that are doing the same thing? And so, literally in a tent down by the river doing drugs, feeling that I have no place that I can feel safe, but I can have a space anytime I want it with my little tent
Mm.
and just, be on my own away from the world in my little tent. Like we have this our family homestead in Chicaloon, and there's like a building. It's called the hatchery. Is what we call it, the hatchery. Used to be a fish hatchery for our village, and now it's like a community home for all the homeless people in our family. I knew I could always just go home. So that cycle continued for a while until I decided to start getting into some outpatient treatment and try to get my visitation and all of my stuff back, like unsupervised visitation of my children back. I started actually doing my plan for the tribal courts and stuff, and it was going pretty well. I had gotten a job and I had been going to treatment 4 times a week.
Was it sinking in? Like, were you learning something about yourself at this time? Were you actually changing the way you think? Or was this all just like a tactile means to an end because you wanted to get your kids back?
I think it was just a means to an end because I wanted to get my kids back. But I was listening to some of the things that were
Yeah.
like I was learning. It was helping. It definitely was helping.
Mm-hmm.
Um, except for the fact that in all of these treatment groups that I was in, it was kind of giving me more connections than I already had.
Mm.
And so I could see that if I wasn't committed to my own recovery, how I could easily hold somebody's hand and make some bad decisions really quickly. So now we're in the summer of 2019. I was still surrounding myself with people that weren't the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
And I got 2 visits a week unsupervised. My this cousin who abused me for years, started staying on our family homestead because his mother passed away. And my child told me he didn't want to be around, he didn't want to be there because of who was there. And so I've been working so hard to get my children back, to get this visitation back, to be like, have a place that he can be, that I can be, without somebody breathing down our neck the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I finally got this, and now my kid doesn't want to be there because of something again outside of my control. And so I started using again, kind of trying to like get away with it while I'm in treatment too. And I start using with this cousin, my abuser. I had been seen at different trap houses with him. Different friends and friends of mine had gotten phone calls from me saying that I was going through some shit with him. And so I'm already not in my right mind. I was having a mental health crisis at the time. I was sleeping in my camper that was like you could see the daylight when I was laying in my bed, and you could look through the ceiling, you could see the sky. Like, this camper was not anything that anybody should be living in, but that's where I was living. Everybody knew that this was going on. So I'm coming down, and my abuser walks up to the camper and knocks on the window. where I'm sleeping. He had already been told by the chief of our tribe and our elders not to be around me, like verbally told that. But like I said, before this happened, I was already didn't maintain that boundary with myself with him. And so I feel like he used it as an opportunity to overstep the boundary even more. So he knocked on my window. I still have no idea why he was there. And as soon as I opened my eyes and seen him, I snapped. That was it. I was like, I don't remember the exchange of words that we had, but I remember I was pissed, I was upset, and he was the last person I wanted to see. And I came flying out the camper door, and my chainsaw gas was sitting there. And I picked it up and started pouring it on myself, screaming at him. And I was thinking about, how am I going to explain to my kids that I relapsed and my family and all of this stuff that I had been doing? Why was I around him? And like all of these things flooding through my head. And so I just started pouring gas on myself. And I remember thinking like nothing's going to change until I do something drastic. I have struggled with this person for my whole life, and they have never protected me from him, and it's never going to change. And so I just poured gas on myself and lit myself on fire in front of him. And we didn't have any running water. There was like a tote of clothes that I had that were dirty that had been sitting out in the rain. And so that tote was full of dirty laundry water. I'm sure you've seen what that stuff looks like in there. It's slimy, gross, nasty water. That's all he had to pour on me and smother me out with those clothes. I had another person staying on my property with me. He and her put me in the car and took me over to my uncle's house, and he called the EMS. And they life flighted me from to Anchorage and stabilized me there and once they stabilized me in Anchorage, they put me on another flight to Seattle. And they put me under an assumed name for the first 3 weeks in the hospital because they didn't know if I did it or if he did it. My family did not want to believe that I would do something like that. My mom was there the next day after I got there, and my organs were starting to fail. They gave me 5% chance to survive my injuries. They were just giving us something. And they didn't really expect me to survive my injuries. My mom came into the room and she begged the doctors to let them talk to me, even though I couldn't really talk. I was intubated and all bandaged from head to toe. And my mom came into the room and she said, "Crystal, I know you're in a lot of pain and you may not be able to speak to me, but I need to know if somebody did this to you or if you did this to yourself." And she said she could see in my eyes, and I said, "I did it." And I know that with every ounce in her being, she wanted for me to say that he did it to me. But I didn't want anybody to find out later that I had lied. And I knew that these may be my last breaths speaking to my mom. My organs were failing. They didn't expect me to live through the night, and they were scrambling to get my family there to say their goodbyes. My oldest son was my next of kin. I'm very thankful that my family did everything that they could in that moment to keep me here. I didn't feel like that at first, though. Waking up after that is a whole nother level of feeling like a failure. And then to have to look in my hurting family's eyes because of what I did. I spent 5.5 months in the Seattle burn unit. I had to relearn how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, how to bathe. Initially, because I was so burned, cadavers were used for my skin until my skin could grow back on its own. And if those bodies weren't there for me to have their skin, I would not be here today. And I'm on all of these heavy, heavy narcotics now. They have to give me even more narcotics when I have to go shower, when they have to shower me. And everybody's doing everything for me. I cannot, like, I have a feeding tube. I had a breathing tube for some of the time. For 3 months, I was in a coma. I remember them waking me up in September when my kids came. The nurse was talking to me before they all came, and I was asking her how many people she had seen pass away in 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 the course of her career. And she said, "Crystal, I don't want to talk about that right now. I want you to tell me what you want me to tell your family in the morning if you don't make it." And in that moment, I thought about my children and what I wanted them to know. And I told them to just tell my kids that it is not their fault. And I want them to know that I love them. And that this is going to be the most painful moment of their whole life. To take a picture with me to remember the most painful moment. And they did take a picture with me the next day. And they ended up sending it to me while I was in the ICU, framed. I say I'm an 80% flammable liquid burn survivor.
Did you want to die or did you want to live?
I don't know that that's a cut and dry answer, but because I was thankful that I was still alive after everything. At that moment, I was really happy to be alive. But once I saw my reflection in the mirror and I woke up, I actually I was angry. And I let everybody know that. I said, how could you waste all the resources? And why would you waste all the manpower and the resources to save my life when that's the way I look?
What would they say back to you?
You did that to yourself. Next time, stop, drop, and roll. I heard some really horrible things from out of a lot of my family members' mouths.
And in that time, through that roller coaster of realizations, of time to reflect on your life, at some point there must have been a point where you had made the decision, yes, I want to live.
It took a long time for me to actually accept that I was still alive and that this was my life now. I was angry and resentful, and like when I went home from the hospital, I wasn't supposed to be discharged until December of 2020, and I was discharged in January of 2020. As soon as I could walk myself to the bathroom and get dressed by myself, I made the doctors let me out of the hospital because I was going to leave the hospital anyway.
Okay.
And I was still heavily medicated. And so they're like, "Crystal, the level of pain that we're still medicating you with heavy narcotics. We can't just let you out. Like, there's not any doctors in the pain management area that will probably take your prescriptions that we're going to send you home with. And there's other things going on in my mom's life. She spent 5 months in Seattle with me in a hotel room. She had somebody like house at her house, and it was like not really reliable people. And she would go home and things would be missing, big TVs, artwork off the walls, and she'd be like, I think that the person that's staying with me is stealing from me. And like, if she didn't have to be in the burn unit, her stuff wasn't going to be ransacked while we're here trying to help me. And so I wanted out of the hospital. And so I, against doctor's advice, left the hospital. But they really did try to work with me. They did get like a doctor in Montana to help manage my medications for the time being. When you go from having a whole team of 10 burn people on the burn unit to your mom and you, it's a whole different life. When I went home, she still had to do everything for me. I couldn't tie my shoes. Could barely feed myself. I was still in a neck brace and head to toe bandages. And we're going home. Once I got home and like started to kind of go through my own recovery, I was still struggling with my self-acceptance and my appearance, and like I would stare at myself in the mirror and like wonder if anybody was ever going to love my mutilated face again. And hearing the echo, like my mom was so angry that she would often tell me, you deserve that. You deserve that. You did that to yourself. What did you expect? And like going through somebody that survives such a horrific attempt on their own life is hard for the whole family in more ways than I can even explain.
Did you start to realize right away that like maybe I should have stayed in the hospital?
Right. I did.
Yeah.
I did. It was just a whole nother realization that my whole life was going to change. It was changed, and that I'm never going to be the same again, but still in a lot of denial, like still trying to prove that I'm still the same person. And that continued. I didn't want to be around anybody. I think I made it like a month on my own medication before I started using illicit drugs. And it was basically, that was my way to socialize after my burn injury. That was like, if you want to do drugs with me, yeah, you could come over and hang out with me. But if you're not going to do drugs with me, you're not going to stand here and look at my face. When I started using drugs illicitly, I got kicked off of my medications that were prescribed to me. I was on heavy Dilaudid 5 times a day that I had to go in and get a UA to get the prescription. I knew that they were trying to wean me down. I knew the next appointment they were going to try to step me down again. I really was in a lot of pain and not able to cope with it. So I knew my mom was using drugs, and I came out of her bedroom and she was like, the disabled bitch in the bedroom's out. And I was like, yeah, I'm out, and I know that you're getting high and you're going to get high with me. And she was like so shocked that I just said that. She handed me the pipe. Then once I was doing them with my mom, she kind of couldn't really tell me no. And the doctor, when I went back to the doctor to I did my UA and stuff, and the doctor comes in and they're like, I can't drive. I'm bandaged head to toe. I could barely see. And like my mom has to walk me into the doctor's office because I can barely see. And she's in the lobby. And the doctor comes in and he goes, I'm going to bring your mom in here because I want to talk to both of you at the same time. And he goes, so Diane, you brought your Crystal here for her appointment today. You know, she's here to get her pain medications. And I just want to let you guys know that we have to send the urine out to see if the Dilaudide's in there, but we already know that you have methamphetamines in your system. We're not going to fill your prescriptions anymore. And they gave me like some Phenergan for nausea and told me I was going to have a rough week.
Holy crap.
After 5 times a day Dilaudid cut off cold turkey.
On top of that, I mean, both Donna and I know what it feels like to be dope sick. I mean, that in itself feels like you're going to die. When he told you that, when you got that news, what was the first thought that went through your mind?
So angry at myself, at my mom, at all of it, the whole, like, and my poor mom, she got the brunt of it because I was like, why would you continue to, like, you guys kept me here for this? And my mom often would tell me that was out of my hands and I would have ended your suffering. And to hear that out of my mom's mouth in an angry way, like, you know, she was just as hurt. She was just as hurt. And
scared, probably. Scared for you?
Very scared. She had no idea how to handle me, and she was definitely afraid that I was gonna do something more. And like, I wasn't suicidal because I had already failed at that. And so I was like in this dark space of, I have tried my worst and it didn't work. And now I'm in a worse place than I ever thought I would be. And I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to live. I started just reaching out to people I knew, like that would allow me to relieve my pain in any way that I wanted to. Like, my mom had to go get order to keep the peace. She wanted me to not be able to disrupt her life. The police in the town where she lives in have been to her house many times for my brothers. And so, like, her house is very known to have lots of drug activity as well. And so when the police would come there and then they see me and they're like, what do you expect us to do? What do you want us to do? What do you really want us to do for your daughter that's burned? You're calling us and we're like, because I was like, my mom would call because she was like afraid that I was gonna, like, I would just like be enraged, freaking out, blaming her, blaming everybody but myself.
And fully feeling this pain, fully feeling your burns.
Absolutely, yes. And fully feeling my burns at the same time. And like,
wow.
And so, like, all of the trauma, just dealing with all of the trauma that my body was going through, and then feeling like I wasn't worthy of interacting with anybody that didn't do drugs. I didn't really want to face life sober. Like, I am in so much pain. Nobody can understand it, and I don't even want to explain it. Like, it was just such a cesspool of darkness. And when my mom got to like the keep the peace order, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but like, I could go to jail if I disrupted her, annoyed her, or played loud music that bothered her. Like, it was a kind of a wake up call. I'd never thought my mom would call the cops on me, but she didn't know what else to do. And she didn't want me to go to jail. She didn't want me to hurt her or myself. And it was getting to the point where she was afraid that I was going to hurt her. Like, I would get into her face and scream at her, and like, I wouldn't hit her, but like, it was scary to go through, especially when your daughter just committed this heinous act to herself. Before it had been a year, I was back in Alaska, still using drugs. Like, it was a whole nother level of recovery, of dealing with different things. I went to the spot where my fire happened, and like made peace with that spot, and found the phone that was on me that day it was burned and put out with me and was still up there. And I picked it up and tried to turn it on, and it turned on. And this is another thing that I don't share with a lot of people. The moment that I lit the lighter, I heard my higher power say, Crystal, you don't get to choose, and now you're going to be in a lot more pain. There's so many unseen forces working in my favor. Like, why am I here? What is the real reason? And I still struggled with that for a while. Still was struggling with my own stability, staying with friends in not very good places. And I went to my uncle's house, and his friend started staying there with a bunch of his girlfriends and their kids, and started just like accumulating trailers of trash that they would go take out of like the donation boxes and like bring it home to like go through it all.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so when I got to this house, like the whole situation was like, how did this house become the trap house in town? Like, I felt like that was my opportunity to like have a place that I could just take over and really show my family that I was ready to live on my own. And so I kicked everybody out of there, and they couldn't tell me I couldn't be there. I just started being like this tyrannic bitch at his trap house. So I'm in this house, and throughout the winter time, the septic stopped working, and you couldn't like take showers without the septic backing up. And so I have a burn injury from head to toe. I have to use surgical wash to shower once every day. And now I really can't do so safely because of the septic. I'm standing in a tote to wash myself in front of the sink with the sink sprayer to keep myself clean in this environment that's already crumbling. Like, I am still just going through this cycle of wait till my paycheck comes, use my paycheck away, and for a couple weeks of the month really have nothing. If I would leave to go like to the grocery store, if I left the house, they would just ransack the place. The soap out of the bathroom, the shampoo, the food in the fridge, my surgical wash, clean clothes, anything they could if they wanted to. I was also like a people pleaser. I would like cook for all of these people all the time too, often. And I'd be like, oh, if you come get me high, I'll make you good dinner. Still using heroin and smoking meth and doing whatever I could, stay up for days. Then I would call my significant other on the phone from Alaska, and he's from there, knew all the people that I was dealing with and all the things, and would listen to me on the phone, crying about what happened this week, or what was gone now, or what I didn't have money to get. And he was like, what if I sent you a ticket to come to Oklahoma? I'm like, yeah, I could come visit. And he's like, not to visit, to get your shit together. He's like, what if I bought you a ticket? I'm just going to buy you a ticket so you could just see. Finally told me, he's like, Crystal, I'm working, and you call me at all hours of the night and like call me drunk. I can't do anything for you from here, but send you a ticket. And if you don't get on the plane, I have no way to help you other than that. And just don't call me anymore. And so he's like really been supportive over the phone since my burn injury. He's been a friend of mine for 30 years and has seen me go through every stage of the things that I've gone through. So my disability was coming again soon. I didn't want to deal with everything I had dealt with in the trap house. Just realizing nobody was ever really going to take me seriously, and I was just being used. This is not why I was saved. To be sitting here in a trap house, smoking drugs, not appreciating life. Also, a catalyst to this change was my son, who was 15 when this happened and is 20 now. He turned 18. He aged out of foster care. And even though my cousin was taking pretty good care of him, he was done. And he moved to Hawaii. Like, that was part of the reason for me to go back to Alaska after my injury, because he was still there, but he moved to Hawaii. And so I had no reason to stay in Alaska anymore. And so I started researching the native hospital here in the town that I live in, and talking to my significant other more. And before this, he was just my friend, and he's like, the only expectation for you to come here is to take care of yourself and get sober, and maybe try to have some kind of relationship with your children after that. But like, really, if you don't get on the plane, don't call me again. And so on October 29th, 2022, I did my last of my drugs, and I got on a plane and left everything I knew and loved in Alaska to have a fresh start again. And I knew that anything I was going towards was so much better than anything that I had already experienced. And it couldn't be any worse.
Yeah. I'm just going to read off today's sponsors and we'll keep going. Okay, EHN Canada is Canada's leading provider of mental health and addiction services, providing evidence-based and medically assisted care with 1-year wraparound services for those suffering with substance use disorder. To learn more, find their link in the show notes below. Métis Nation Saskatchewan has announced its path for the pursuit of self-government. As an MNS citizen, I am proud to see my government fight to protect my rights. This is our moment. To learn more about the treaty and our path to self-government, go to ourmoment.ca. Wellness News. Choice for Healthy Living is a local resource that works to connect people to health and wellness-related products, services, and expert advice from industry professionals, locally allowing us to connect and engage. Check out wellnessnews.ca or skwellnesshub.ca today to learn more. To make contact or to learn more about today's sponsors, to check out our merch, or if you want to show us some love and buy us a coffee, all of those links are also in the show notes below. So, Donna, you've been pretty quiet for the last little while. Certainly, you've had some thoughts. Now we're entering into Crystal's recovery journey, and there have been some points along the way here that I know resonate with you, like the getting pregnant part, and the abuser part, being stuck, not being able to escape. Is there anything that you just want to reflect on, throw in here before we keep moving?
I connect very deeply with Crystal's experiences, and I just feel it's important that she knows that you're not alone. I'm sitting here holding space for you, which is why I'm being quiet. I want to be respectful of that journey that you're on right now. I know it's a difficult one. I do some sharing as well, and it's hard to walk through all those traumas again and keep sort of a composure and keep the story moving forward and not kind of get stuck, in that trauma in that moment. So I really, really commend you for how you are walking through this journey with such strength and resilience. And I feel very deeply for your experiences.
Thank you.
So
this plane ride that you're on now, going to Oklahoma, do you feel like you're done? Like, when you're on this plane ride, do you feel this is it, I'm done?
I do. And so on this plane ride, I'm just praying, just trying to utilize all the training and education I've had in the past, and really think about, what did people say about goals and life, and what do I really want life to look like now? I don't have any idea what kind of environment I'm really coming to. I just trusted that Riv had my back. And so I'm just trying to manifest a new life on the other side of my addiction on this flight. I don't know anybody in this state besides Riv, and I definitely don't know anybody that I could get substances from. I'm excited to finally have just a place where I could not feel like I have to look over my shoulder not feel like I have to hide my stuff for it to be there when I need it. So I get here and I'm excited to be here. Riv he and I had a big crush on him since I was younger, since before I had my kids. He was one of my brother's best friend. And so he is very familiar with all of the things that we went through as children too. He's a roofer and he works every day early, like 5 o'clock in the morning. He's up and out of the house and off to work. And he had like bought me a robe and like bath stuff so I could just like take a bath for the first time. He never realized how much you miss a bathtub and like being able to relax in a bath just by yourself with your thoughts. How powerful that is when you haven't had it for so long. He left me a stack of money. He goes, if for whatever you need or whatever. But if you go and you get high, don't come back. Like and look me in my eyes and just left for the day for work. And I'm like, I am not going nowhere without you. Like, I'm not trying to, like, the environment down here is a lot different than it was in Alaska. And so I cold turkey in this apartment. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't go to treatment. I didn't go to meetings. I didn't want any reminder of that life and around me.
Can you tell us some of the thoughts that went through your head when you were in the grips of that withdrawal and experiencing fully your pain alone in that apartment?
I would lay in the fetal position in bed for days. And just like, there's just lots of thoughts. I wasn't suicidal. I was just like trying to think of what my kids want me to do, what's going to make me happy now with this new life. It was really lonely. It was really lonely. And so I tried to start reaching out to like support groups and go to therapy here. And I reached out to like a counselor here. And then I started going. The first doctor's appointment I went to, I just kind of unloaded on my doctor, brought her my burn records, and like she referred me to the burn center and the eye doctor and the mental health. And then I had all these appointments. I had like 3 appointments, doctor's appointments a week. And so I was like getting into a new routine of just caring for Crystal. And that in itself was a whole nother experience for me.
Were you doing it for yourself?
I think I was more doing it for my kids.
Okay.
It wasn't really for myself for a long time.
So tell us about like the first light bulb moments that you had. I'd like to know more about, because in my own journey, and I'm sure Donna can relate, there are moments where you have thoughts or that you hear the right thing at the right time, whether that for Donna was meditations, for me, it was the big book, for, different things. Tell us now, like when you emerged from that apartment and you're going to these doctor's appointments, how did your thoughts start changing? Like, tell us about some of those milestones.
So in March of 2023, like a little while after starting to go to the doctor and everything, I started sharing my story online. I started my YouTube channel and I I did like this personal development course too. And it really started doing some exercises that really made me like reflect on what I wanted for my future and how to be in this world and to like create this success character and to let them drive the vehicle every day. And so I just started kind of thinking about how somebody who wants to speak publicly about the things that they have gone through, how would they carry themselves? How would they talk to their doctors? I just started doing that. Also, my medical team being so willing to actually listen to me and hold that space to actually see how they could help me was a big thing for me. So I got a fresh start when I came here. And so I was not afraid to tell my doctors and to go in there while being clean That was a whole thing too. It's like I went in, talked to my doctors, they UA'd me, did all the blood tests, everything right then. And like they could tell that I was clean and wanted to change and wanted it different. And they helped me do that.
You said a few things that sort of piqued my interest throughout your story here, and particularly when it comes to places that are painful and you have nowhere else to turn. Is you said that you would pray. You would just pray for this or pray for that, and it doesn't sound to me like spirituality was a big part of your life. And beyond the foxhole prayers, the save me this one time and I'll change, type thing. And then you talked about building a success character and then doing what that character would do. Now, to me, that sounds almost like a higher power. Now, did spirituality enter your life, anywhere here on your healing journey? Like, do you believe that there's something bigger out there that wants you to do good?
I do. I do believe that there is my higher power had a higher purpose for me that day, is what I often say. And, God, source, universe, whatever you call it. I don't necessarily follow the Bible and all of that. I just know there is a power greater than me that is moving this universe forward, moving my journey forward. And right after I lit the lighter, when I lit myself on fire, I felt the spirit tell me, Crystal, you don't get to choose. Now you're going to be in a lot more pain. And like, I knew from that moment, like it was going to be a struggle. I knew kind of from that moment not to try that again.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, I knew not to do that again.
You're right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And just by really a lot of self-reflection, and that success character thing came from the course, the personal development course director that I was following at the time. His name's Jeff Lerner, and he just has like this institute online of personal development stuff. And I read his book, and I read a lot of books, and so a lot of personal development books. And I started reading like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and just lots of different personal development books that helped me to just visualize what I wanted to do with my future, rather than dwell on everything that has gone on in my past, and how I could do it and articulate my words in a way that would help others in a similar situation in the future.
Yeah. And what did that look like for you then when you, I guess, sort of moved out of that initial healing phase of your life and into integrating into community and using your experiences to help others? Like, I
started getting involved with the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors is an online, it's a nonprofit here in the U.S., and they have online peer support meetings, and they're twice a week or twice a month, and I was told about these peer support groups, and I knew about these peer support meetings and groups with the Phoenix Society, and I started joining those in January of 2023 online, and really being committed to being on camera and sharing my story with other people who were there to help support me, even if they hadn't been through the same experience. And getting more comfortable with telling my story in that group was one of the biggest changes for me. And now, when I first was burned, I didn't do all my stretches and my physical therapy stuff as much as I could have. But one of the thoughts in my mind was, this person on this sheet, this picture that they're showing me how to do these stretches, isn't burned. I'm like, so how am I supposed to take that seriously? Like, they're not even burned. Their face doesn't look like mine. My face doesn't move like that. My arms don't move like that. And it was just negative, right? And so once I started getting involved in the burn community and seeing that there were other people that were like me, even if their injury didn't occur in the same fashion, they've gone through the same things. And we can still relate. And seeing how much that helped me, I was like, oh, this is why this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I could share my story even through all of the shame and disappointment, all of it, and help save somebody else's life. So I am the founder of CRH Media.
What is that?
My media company. It's the company that I started to start sharing my story and self-publish my book. My YouTube channel is The Burn, the Broken, and the Beautiful. And my book the title is The Burn, the Broken, and the Beautiful, a memoir of me. And I have been diligently working on that, just writing out my story, and that's even hard in itself. And this definitely helps me to like get that more out down on paper, those difficult moments. And when I started getting involved with the burn community, I asked them how to get more involved, and they offered me the peer support training to become a peer support volunteer. So I applied for that training last year also, and actually obtained it this year, and networked with other research companies within the burn community also, to help share the resources that are already researched. There's already a bunch of research and articles created about it. I could just share it and not have to recreate the wheel. And so I have networked with, it's called the Model Systems Knowledge Translation Center. And they have burn injury resources, brain injury resources, and I'm part of a University of Washington research study for adult burn survivors also.
What a ride this has been today, Crystal. Is there anything that you would like to say, anything that you'd like to leave somebody with who might be watching, who might be in a similar place where you were, of hopelessness and darkness? Like, what would you like to say to that person?
You are worthy of seeing your life get better. And just to believe in yourself, and anything is possible. I'm living proof of that. I share my story. My deep why to sharing my story is to help others in similar situations, and to honor the lives that were lost in order for me to have mine. I'm just honored to be able to share my story with you guys. Thank you for the time and for giving me this space.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Having said that, thank you so much, Crystal, and take good care.
Thank you. Many blessings.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.